What is going on, everyone, and welcome to Around the Metaverse, our weekly show where we bring together some of the best content creators from the blockchain and NFT gaming community, talk about all the recent news, and give you guys everything you need to know to stay up to date. My name's Adam. I'll be your host today, but more importantly, as always, we've got a great group of guests for y'all and another great show lined up. First and foremost, on this wonderful Monday, we've got CryptoStache in the house. How's it going, my friend?
Doing it Monday, excited because tomorrow I'm going to be in Miami. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Miami for the Gamers Choice Awards. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I like it.
Have some content coming out for y'all. If any, well, everyone's going to be there, content creator wise, or a lot of people, most people. So you'll be getting a lot of content all across the board. We also got some familiar faces coming back to the show today. We got Miss Teen Crypto keeping it zesty as usual. How are you, MTC?
I'm chilling. Thank you guys for having me back. It's always good to chill with you guys.
You're always welcome here, MTC.
Thank you.
We got Kyle Wilson in the house, co-founder of Wildfire Guild and newly working with Paul Barron TV. How's it going, Kyle?
Man, it's great. It's great to be back, and thanks for having me on. And yeah, excited to talk about some Amazon here. So
Big Daddy Bezos might be putting his stepping in the game, man. But we'll get to that. And last, certainly not least, we got Dr. JPEG, the myth, the man, the legend himself, Web3.
What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited this time because there's some really juicy topics. So if you guys are just tuning in, make sure you stick around because we're going to cover some good stuff today. And then tell a couple of people about this. Retweet it, tag some people in the comments if you're watching this, and let's jump into it, man.
Let's jump into it. And like Dr. JPEG said, man, smash the like if you haven't, if you're just joining us, or hit subscribe maybe if you're not subscribed to the channel already. I know a lot of you are, but some of you aren't. I know you aren't. I look at the analytics, so go ahead and smash that subscribe button.
You bastard, subscribe! Just do it already. Hit the button.
Yeah, just do it already, okay? Just do it already. But we got a jam-packed show for y'all today. We've got, interestingly enough, some topics that I thought we weren't going to be covering again, but here we go talking about them. We're going to be seeing if Axie Infinity can make a comeback here. If Yuga Labs is whether or not Yuga Labs has a copyright on the Bored Ape Yacht Club imagery, and if they don't, what problems might arise from that. Some developments in the Ryder Rips lawsuit that's going on with them, and Amazon maybe being all in on Web3. Some kind of rumors coming out of the rumor mill here about Jeff Bezos's company and them starting to take a step into Web3 here, and already some news if you're keyed into the industry enough from some of our favorite partners who might be working with Amazon, on their games. But let's dive right into things first here. Can Axie Infinity make a comeback? So we haven't talked about Axie Infinity in a little bit on the channel, and they had some developments, I guess you could say, over the past. I mean, since we last touched on them here, and as it turns out, over the last week or two or a couple of weeks, the trading volume for their assets has been through the roof. Over the last 30 days, up 26, almost 2,700%, according to DApp Radar, and I'm not sure if that's like the token or the NFTs or all of the assets for the project itself, but still, a gain not to be snarked at, I guess. But I want to get your guys' opinions on Axie Infinity if it can make a comeback. They had some Homeland gameplay come out that, whether you're into that or not, looks decent. But Stash, let me get your opinion on this, man. I mean, do you think new Axie Infinity Homeland is what's driving this surge in trading volume, and do you think that actually could ever make a true comeback?
No.
Care to elaborate, sir? G-Host is sitting there crying. He's like, "Yeah, Stash he won't even talk about us."
When you say come back and do what? I honestly feel like they kind of hit their peak already, and they made a shit ton of money. What do you need to do as a company now to really get back to something where you've come back? I mean, are they ever really going to get as many followers and as many people playing their game as they did at their kind of pinnacle or their peak? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they're going to be going anywhere. I think they'll definitely keep trying to expand the ecosystem. but they need to take it in pretty radical different directions. I mean, the land gameplay is definitely a step in the right direction. I will say that when you talk about Axie as an IP, they are trying to expand there, but they've been so slow to do it. I mean, this is something that we've seen other brands do very quickly with similar amounts of money. Bored Ape Yacht Club being one of those, where they've easily been able to expand. Doodles also recently doing something similar. Axie Infinity has a shit ton of money, a huge war chest, and they've done so little, I feel, in this kind of respect, and that really could be what would vault them forward. But I don't think that they really have as much of the dedication as people may think they do. I think there was a lot of like lingering dedication there from people who held bags, held Axies on for a long time, propped up from the fact that everyone was playing and earning and making a living in a lot of places as well with this. And I think at this point, yeah, are there still people playing it? Sure. Is it a really good game? It's not. Is it a game that's going to be like an esport hit? It's not, man. I'm not like, no esport player is going to play this game over something else unless people are throwing stupid amounts of money at them. And that would really be the one move that I could see Axie Infinity doing with their large war chest, is just throwing stupid amounts of money at people to play it, even though it's not necessarily something that people really enjoy playing a lot. So I do think that, could they make a comeback? I mean, the only way really would be to push the IP angle of it and release more stuff around the ecosystem that is, very casually gaming focused, trying to get more young people involved, because, the art style and the gameplay is kind of pushed that direction as being more of a casual type of thing versus it being kind of a high level. So, I mean, I honestly don't think they're going to be able to get back to that, like, what we consider like that 2020 going to 2021 type of, pinnacle of success. I don't see it happening.
Well, yeah, and for those of you who don't know, that pinnacle of success is like, millions and millions of people playing the game on a daily basis. People even like quitting their jobs in the Philippines, for example, because you could earn more money than anywhere else that is available for work out there, just playing the game 8 hours a day or whatever. And that once it caught on that was the case, it got so popular and so oversaturated that the token price just collapsed, and we find ourselves here today. But according to, there's been a big surge in the assets, so I don't know if it's going to continue that way or not. But Dr. JPEG, let me ask you, man. I mean, why do you think that the token prices and the assets, I think, have gone up in price a bit, and the trading volume has surged? Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, here's my take on this. I am forever grateful for Axie coming into the space, because I think that they were a pioneer that kind of trailblazed to show what can be done. But it's like when I think back to gaming as a child, I think of Crash Bandicoot, but it didn't take off or go anywhere from there. There wasn't much of a future for it. So that's just kind of in relation of the relevance moving forwards more than the gameplay. I actually really enjoyed Crash Bandicoot. I didn't really enjoy Axie Infinity as a game, but I think Stash has a good point. You make a good point, because here is the problem. What was happening when Axie was getting popular is it was something where people could come in and extract value. It was a value extraction. That's what was happening. That is not how gaming ecosystems work. What happened is a byproduct of that. So, for myself, I don't really have any, inherent interest in Axie or anything there. I don't see it being a huge breakout. I think that we have a lot of phenomenal choices of where you can go to play competitive, fun games. There are, ecosystems such as NF Arcade, where you can earn USDC playing games. And there's different things that I don't think people have to lean on Axie as much as back then it was the only choice. So I don't really have an explanation for maybe why the assets are pumping. Maybe it's people that were Axie Maxies coming in and being like, okay, this is our time to get revved back up and make all the money again. But, the market has to have money coming in and money going out, and they've mastered the zero-sum game. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're sitting on a mountain of treasure over there, just giving us little breadcrumbs of land. Well, I mean, it was in the works for quite some time, but was the wait worth it? That's that's yet to be seen, I guess. MTC, let me ask you. I mean, do you think Axie will ever regain its popularity that it did back in 20 or like, a little over a year and a half ago? And, if not, do you think that there's a chance that Sky Mavis could like ever pivot away from it?
I'm not too sure. I don't like. I kind of agree with Stash. I don't think they'd get back to the top. Being that I think what a lot of people forgot was that their tokenomics and the whole like economy of the game was not viable. I guess it wasn't reliable. It wasn't sustainable. Essentially, it wasn't going to last over a long period of time. So I'm not sure if it was the volume of people that diluted Axie or was just the bad tokenomics and economics of the game in general. I don't know if they'll regain their hype. I mean, if there is going to be there's going to be a ton more play to earn games. There's already games out that are a lot more involved, a lot more immersive than what Axie Infinity already is. And I'm thinking about the Ronin hack as well. There were, people on the team that were rumored to get involved. The FBI was investigating, but no one on the team was held accountable. So to me, there's still a lot of money out there that they didn't answer for. So in my opinion, I'm not sure if Sky Mavis as a whole can bounce back unless they, again, come out with a really good game, a banger of a game that distracts everybody else. Because again, once something new and shiny is in everyone's faces, then they kind of forget what happened in the past. And I do think that Ronin had a few pros to it in terms of like UIs and how you could deal with it, but I'm not sure if people will trust them again.
I think you're exactly right there, and I think Sky Mavis has two options here probably. Like, they could lean into Ronin, and well, so if they're gonna do with anything with Axie Infinity, for me personally, I think one option for them is like I feel like they could pivot away from it being a game so much and like turn it into like plushy collectibles or like some kind of like television series or some kind of like thing like that. That would be maybe like a last ditch effort at salvaging that like IP. Because I think Axie plushies or something like that would be kind of cool or collectible, or something like that. But Kyle, let me ask you, man. I mean, do you think do you think Sky Mavis's shot? Are we ever going to hear of them as like a top player again? Do you think Ronan is ever going to take off? And what do you think might happen with Axie Infinity?
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting on a big war chest, I'm sure still, and anything's possible. Now, I don't think they're going to be the darling of the space like they were before. I think there's going to be too much competition, too many actual fun games that are going to take number one spots and be continuing to compete against each other. While I think Sky Mavis could pivot maybe into like studio kind of angel VC mode, and that could serve them well in that position. But I just don't think that they'll be kind of that darling of the Web3 gaming space. Not it's just too many mistakes and not enough opportunities capitalized upon, like you're saying earlier with Stash and Adam about the lure. They could have did so much, and it's been a long time. It's been about a year or two since it's really popped off, and they had a lot of opportunities, and I feel like they dropped a lot of balls. Doodles is a great example. How well they've actually done. And how in the direction that Doodles is going in, I think Axie could have easily did that and did that relatively quickly instead of focusing on I'm not even sure what they were focusing on. It's been such a long time just to have this like land game come out, and for me it's just not a game that I've ever been excited about. So maybe they'll one day produce a game I'm excited about, but that time is not today.
Or like, and actually, you just gave me another good idea. Like, imagine, like, did anyone, you guys play Nintendogs or like, I mean, or I guess Tamagotchis too is not as immersive as Nintendogs, but like, imagine if they did some kind of Tamagotchi like thing for your, Axes too. Like that might have some appeal to it as well. Like, as someone who doesn't like any of the games they've put out so far, I would maybe get an Axie to have some kind of Tamagotchi Nintendogs style gameplay. But
But you would
I
have
don't know.
wanted it a lot earlier, though. Like they should have had you on their like list of advisors or board of advisors. So like you could have turned that around right away, right?
Every
Honestly, there was a lot of community engagement with Axie Infinity. So many people wanted to help, but I remember during the hype that they didn't want to listen to anybody. And that's the problem too. Like, when people are small, they'll listen. During the bear markets, they'll listen. And then once the project takes off, all of a sudden they're too cool for school and they don't want to listen to their community because they think they know best. But without the community, they wouldn't have gotten there. And I do think the other problem with Axie is that people were thinking about the pumpamentals versus the fundamentals of the project. And a lot of it was relying on the money factor.
Well, yeah, and there were some cool things that they tried to do. Like I know there were some community projects like Axie Cart, I think was one that like kind of got a little bit of traction. And like, again, I'm not up to date on this, but with Ronin blockchain, I'm pretty sure they were slotted to have like a few more games come into play here, but it was like when they were selecting people and projects to like bring onto the chain, it was like super centralized and like hard to like apply. And I guess like, they weren't really accepting a lot of people. So, to your point, like maybe, there might be a little bit more traction out there for them if they had leaned in into their community a bit more than they have. But I don't know what's gonna happen with Axie. Every time we're on the show, I feel like there's at least one idea that comes out from someone here that's like a hireable, like actionable thing for a project. But so Sky Mavis, Geo, if you're listening out there, take some notes, man. But let's hop on to our next topic. Stash is not happy.
No, I mean it's just like you said. When you look at other gaming projects that have got the same amount of infusion of cash, or even less, and how much they've done in the same amount of time. Like you look at what Gala's done here in the same amount of time. You look at like what other companies like IMX and Polygon and like other larger networks that have large amounts of cash. What they've done and developed in this last 2 years. It's crazy. Even Yuga pivoting from being just a PFP collection to like, hey, we're gonna do a whole metaverse, and then like really going after it and like putting some, and seeing developments and actually something coming of it. As much as sometimes I'm critical of Yuga, I got to give him props over Axie for sure when it comes to a lot of those aspects of branding, of branching out, of pushing, the brand and bringing more things on board to keep their their overall ecosystem, interested. And I feel like Axie just really hasn't done that, man. And even a lot of people have said like the new Axie, a gameplay is not even, as good as the old one. And, maybe you like the little builder land gameplay stuff. Cool. If you like that kind of stuff, then maybe that's right up your alley. But for how much time and how much money they've had, I just feel like they could have done so much more. And to me, what it really signifies is kind of a lack in leadership. I feel like they just don't have the people that know and how to get these things done and know what direction to take the ship. And that's what it kind of looks like to me. That's what it's always looked like to me. It's the reason why we've seen their contracts, not be audited and then be hacked, and like multiple things over and over again. The narrative change between them, for sure saying our game is all about playing and earning, and look how amazing it is, to saying, oh, we never said that. It was never about playing and earning. And like they just the direction they've always gone. I feel like the leadership has been a big, detractor for me in particular too, and I think that has led to a lot of these issues we've seen with Axie Infinity just not being able to deliver quick enough or in a manner that really pushes things forward.
Ship without a captain is destined for a rough sail. So Sky Mavis, we'll see what happens here in the next run. Who knows? There are some dead projects that tend to revive themselves in the next cycle. Maybe you'll be one. Not saying Axie's dead by any means, but closer to the grave than a lot of than some of its fans might want to think, at least. But let's hop into our next topic here. Another interesting story, kind of like bringing up questions about how we need to look at the way like the current laws around IP and the new technologies around NFTs and digital assets are going to be looked at here going into the future. So for those of you who don't know, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago, something like that, there was this big scandal about that came out, or an article from Ryder Rips talking about Bored Ape Yacht Club and Yuga Labs being comprised of like a bunch of Nazis and all these kind of like, maybe shouldn't have said that word on the stream, my bad, but a bunch of stuff about inside jokes and all this like Easter eggs that are with racist innuendos and things like that, that brought them to court now. And in court, this isn't really the direct kind of thing that they're going after here in court, but one of the questions that got brought up was whether or not Yuga Labs has copyright over the Bored Ape Yacht Club imagery. And while they don't have a federal register, like they haven't federally registered the copyright for it, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have the copyright for that imagery. But the way we look at these things and the way that the law is written is kind of ambiguous on how we look at the art for, or classifying these NFTs, just due to the nature of it being a 10,000 PFP collection. But I want to get your guys' opinions on, like, in general, if you think that the current laws that we have in place to go about copyright laws and things like that for NFTs are going to work, or what we should be like, how we should be looking at this. So Kyle, let me start with you. I mean, do you think it's a concern? Well, first off, do you think it's a concern that Yuga Labs doesn't have the federal copyright registration for the Bored Ape Yacht Club imagery?
Yeah, this is kind of a loaded question because although I mean, there's so much to unpack here with the Ryder Rips thing, him kind of challenging Yuga, and he knew what he was doing from the get go. I think he wanted them to file a lawsuit against him, and I mean, this article is showing that uh, technically Yuga doesn't own the copyright to the images, but they have the copyrights. So there's some confusion here, and the courts aren't exactly saying or they're not necessarily saying that the court is going to like name that copyright infringement or their lack thereof. So this is very sticky, and if this goes through on Ryder Rips' side, this could have repercussions for the industry as a whole, because then these generative projects may not have their own copyrights and anybody could just knock them off, and that could create a cascading like effect of people just launching scam projects. So this one's kind of definitely one to watch. Now I think Ryder knew what he was doing in terms of the legal side of this, so it is very interesting. I don't know what else to say about this one. It's very controversial, whether you believe what Ryder Rip said or not. That's a whole different story. But yeah, this is definitely one to watch for sure, though.
Yeah, when that news broke initially, I think everyone was a little bit shocked, and like it's kind of not been swept under the rug, but you know how the 24 news cycle goes. In crypto, it's more like a 4-hour news cycle. And by the time yeah, it's like, 10 minutes go by and you're like, oh, squirrel, I forgot all about that. Uh no, but I mean my thing with the Bored Ape with this is that like the part of the value proposition of Bored Ape Yacht Club was to be able to use the likeness of your Bored Ape for whatever you want and have that like ownership of it. And like in this case, like if you're a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT owner and you want to use your Bored Apes imagery for your own business or whatever, like if someone copies that and then like you don't like you think you could go file a lawsuit on them, but really you can't like if Yuga Labs doesn't have the rights to like give you in the first place. So I mean, what does that say about the value of a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT? Um, Dr. JPEG, let me ask you. I mean, what problems do you think might come up if the court decides Yuga doesn't own the copyrights for these images?
Yeah, I think that it's a really difficult thing to try and pry back without, being, a lawyer here. But my thoughts behind this is when you go to look at their website, you have commercial IP rights, like they have it laid out for Bored Apes and Mutant Apes individually. They outline it, if you want to use it for personal or commercial. So I think that they thought these things through. There's just a loophole that I think was decisively attacked, kind of like what Kyle had said. So I think that was the angle that Ryder Rips took. I think that they're a massive company that, regardless of what's been thrown at them, for example, his well executed and thought out documentary that he did with another gentleman. You look at all the other things that happened. I don't know if you guys know this, but their game actually had a hack. A guy came out and actually did a Twitter thread on multiple exploits of the game itself, because they're storing their scores on the client side, meaning that you control the data on your computer. It's not controlled safely behind a server side. So there was multiple threads that came out where the guy was actually just being polite about it. He's like, hey, I found a way to hack into this. I let the team know, just so you guys know, this is what's happening here. And everyone's kind of like, scoffed at it, if you will, to play off what you're saying. And I think they just have such a strong brand that at the end of the day, I think that the community is going to come together and they're really going to find a way to work through this. But it's a really interesting topic because you see a lot of people that have gone ahead and made businesses out of this using the IP. You see the burger place in LA that the line was like, around the block 5 times. And, it's a really cool community that's super supportive of each other. So I don't necessarily see apes ripping each other's IP off or things like that. And they're just such a massive company that I think that they'll get through this. I'm confident about it. But like I said, or Kyle touched on rather, I think it was one of those decisive things that Ryder found an in on it when he was looking through everything, and it's just that's the way it's going right now. So we'll see what happens.
Things to just put all the red tape up and keep it in the court, give them a hard time. I know, and it's funny you mentioned the the exploit that happened with the game. It's like, he was being polite about it. I feel like anytime there's any kind of like crypto heist or exploit or something like that, the exploiter or hacker is like, there's always some kind of like joke, like ha ha ha, like I've got all your funds now, like whatever it might be. But it's like robbing a bank and leaving like an IOU note when you leave the bank.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's super polite. People actually were giving him shit about it because he was literally like, oh, they already knew, man. You already said one time. He's like, no, there's another exploit, so I'm just letting them know. And on top of that, one more thing, there was a game, apparently a Flash game from like 2008 that I guess that they literally someone said they pulled the code from and like rescanned. I mean, you can go look at that. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but and again, no one really batted an eye at it. So I think that they've done a really good job at establishing themselves as a marketing brand, if nothing else. So we'll see what happens, man.
Well, yeah, and I don't think this pushes anything back with like what they're doing with the other side and things like that too. Like at this point, I would say what they're working on there is far more important than like the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection itself, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Honestly, if Ryder does like win or sets kind of some kind of precedence, this could be I guess the silver lining, if you would call that, is that, artists could indeed maybe have more an advantage in the NFT marketplace moving forward. Because the whole, I think, crux would be that the generative art isn't really you can't copyright that, but you could copyright an actual one-of-one piece of art. So if there's a bunch of one-of-ones in a huge collection, then that could be something there. So it's something to watch, but it could just be nothing.
well, yeah, and Kyle, you just reminded me of another aspect of, I guess, that ties into this topic that we're talking about. But like, you think about not just NFTs and digital collectibles on the blockchain, but talking about copyright and IP laws, like what's happening with AI and art right now is also something to be like, thinking about too. And both of those coming together, I think, are gonna like happening at the same time, or it's gonna like make it so that the laws we have now just don't even make sense. Like, well, it's gonna be hard to apply them. But Stash,
Yeah,
let me ask you. Oh, go for it.
yeah, and just to add, there's a big AI like lawsuit going right now. I think with like Midjourney and one other like major AI app as well. So that's another one to watch as well.
But yeah, Stash, let me get your opinion, man. I mean, what do you think like the major issues might like be with applying the current copyright and IP laws to NFTs and even like AI generated art?
It's difficult. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. If you guys have not been around the industry for a very long time, but when CryptoPunks, were first really hitting the scene, there were tons of copycats. I mean, we've seen this over and over again. Where like finance punks, and like literally taking the art from crypto and making just the same collection, but on Binance, on BNB chain. So we've seen this as an issue for quite a few years before the popularity of NFTs really hit mainstream. This has been an issue and something we've talked about. I honestly think that NFTs and generative art are going to push the boundaries of copyright and force the hand of regulators to have to do something about it, because with this current technology, it's just like financial regulation. It's just not really made for everything we're seeing right now in cryptocurrency. We're pushing the forefront in so many different ways that the existing systems and the existing laws and the existing regulations and fail safes they just don't really cover what we're doing here. And that goes, I think, for NFTs and generative art and AI generated art too. And so we're seeing that right now. We're seeing people push back, and there being issues of like, well, what if one of these AIs is drawing from a copyrighted collection and then uses that to then make something brand new? Is that okay, or is it not okay? And how do you even stop something like that? And that's the problem we've seen here on the blockchain with a lot of these projects, in particular ones that are anonymous. Is how do you stop them copycatting and putting a copy out, making a bunch of money, and then no one ever knows who they are? This happened literally dozens and dozens of times in like 2019, 2020. I mean, it was like rampant. It was rampant. And so, in particular with this situation here with Ryder Rips and Yuga, they're not. He's not actually being sued for copyright infringement. He's being sued for trademark infringement and false advertising. they know that they don't have the copyright and they can't sue him based upon that. So that has been thrown out the window. So basically it has nothing to do with copyright, but it has everything to do with the way he's essentially marketed this, and they think it's deceptive and that he's stepped on their trademark. Now that very well may be true. All the other, like, you know, symbolism, all that shit, you know, that can be open to interpretation. That's definitely not the meat of the issue here. But it really does come down to the fact that, like, hey, you know, generating art in a certain way, that, you know, does that fall underneath, you know, existing laws, whether it be trademark, whether it be copyright infringement? And for the most part, I would say probably not. So we could see kind of a landmark case being built here with Yuga because they're so high profile. And to what a lot of other people were saying about Ryder Ripps, you know, I think that this was expertly planned. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And I think that it was really to put, you know, a spotlight on himself and his collection and stuff that he was trying to promote. Because what better way to do this? You know, we've seen this a lot of times with, like, negative promotion can be huge. You know, when you see like a Pixelmon who comes out with this horrible, you know, character artwork for something they sold for millions of dollars worth of gaming assets, and people are like, oh my gosh, this is like the worst shit ever. Well, you know, it was so bad that it made headlines, right? And I think that we're seeing a similar thing here with Ryder Ripps and this, you know, on this, you know, lawsuit, which has been ongoing. And I mean, I don't know who's going to win here, but I really don't think that current law does a great job of, you know, attending to what we're seeing here in the emerging NFT industry. When it comes to copyright, when it comes to artist rights, and then how then you start mixing AI in there, and I mean, shit just gets crazy, man. You know, you start mixing AI in there, and you're like, oh my gosh, like literally, you know, when you pull up a you know, a Mid-Journey, and there's a watermark from Getty Images on the image that it's generated. You're like, come on, man, serious? So yeah, no, we're pushing. Something is coming. The dam is gonna break. And I don't know what it's going to be, what case it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be this case in particular. I think there will be some implications, but I don't think it'll be like, you know, art sweeping or AI sweeping kind of case. I think we'll see that here possibly in 2023, where somebody, you know, really raises that flag and there's a landmark case going to court. And it could be with some of these AI generated, you know, image platforms.
Stache, what a time to be alive, man. The way that you said that so beautifully, it's so funny because I think people look at AI and their minds are, we probably can't swear any. Their minds are blown.
Go for it, man. Fucking blown.
Their minds are fucking blown, right? Because they're like, oh my God, this is just, it drops out of nowhere. It's like people with Axie Infinity. This money is falling from the sky. This beautiful art's falling from the sky. No, man, AI is fucking crawling the internet for an image that you're describing, and it's trying to string it together. Where do you think it's getting it from? It's getting it from existing images that are out there. Is it being generated and pulled together by a system? Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not infringing on someone's already existing work. So this is such an interesting topic because everyone thinks they know it because everyone can use it. You pay $10 a month and go to Mid-Journey, right? But it doesn't make it fucking yours.
What if you can train an AI to be so specific and so good that it generates based off of like an algorithm about like the combination of which pixels to use and colors, like, you know, where it's not pulling from existing, maybe it's using it as
yeah, like article spinners, for instance, they already kind of do that. They can write like organic looking material. And at first it was awful. You could like throw it into a plagiarizing checking tool and it would be like 80% plagiarized, which means it was just spun. But it'll probably be the same situation here. And I would imagine that they would kind of like look at like kind of logo laws. Like if it's slightly enough different, then it's considered art. I don't know. We'll see though.
I mean, I don't know. It's going to be a crazy change here. MTC, let me get your opinion on this. I mean, how do you think we're going to see NFTs and specifically like the crypto art change with like the emergence of AI, when there's already kind of concerns about how it was generated or generative art in the first place?
Yeah, I do think AI art is not going away. Of course, we've seen when it was first popping off, everybody on Twitter and their mother had it as their profile picture all over Instagram, every social media. TikTok even had to have an AI effect, a filter. So AI is obsessive. People love it. At the same time, I don't think the intrinsic intrinsic value of art and human, like actual hand drawn art, is going to go away. And even, you know, the 10K projects where, you know, you have your elements, I guess, and it just randomizes it in 10,000 different ways. I don't think that's going away. And I think a lot of people in NFTs really value people's art, and, you know, photography is really popping off, music. So I think AI is going to come along, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a threat to everybody else, because there's always something new, always something, you know, being created that other people didn't see yet. So I think we're going to be okay.
I don't know.
It-
I don't know.
Well, the thing is, you know, AI is just another tool. You know, when we talk about same thing with NFTs, people think, oh, it's this crazy thing, and it is, right? Because it's so new that everyone wants to talk about it, and it becomes this you know, thing that you put on a pedestal essentially. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be another tool in our box to be able to do the things we want to do faster, more efficient, and more appealing, right? People who maybe could never have done art before can now do it with just being able to enter in text strings and things that, you know, that they can visualize in their head but can't actually physically make.
Traditional artists punching the air right now at that
right, and I get that, but just we've seen traditional art. We've seen traditional art, you know, evolve over the over time as well. When you think about, like, okay, well, what kind of brushes do you think artists were? What kind of quality brushes do you think artists were using? You know, 200-300 years ago, 400 years ago. Do you think that the brushes and the quality of the paints and the quality of the canvases and all these other tools that artists use to make their work, do you think they're better now or they're worse than they were that long ago? I mean, I think that the tools continue to get better over time, and sometimes there's that one tool that you know, really shakes things up, and AI is definitely doing that. And you know, so yeah, I mean, kind of coming back to Yuga, it's just you know, it's interesting to see how these generative type art projects are going to deal with the law, because once again, the law in particular here in the United States is just not caught up. I mean, shit, it can barely deal with crypto. Well, I mean, let alone NFTs. And then you talk about, you get into even like the minutia of what's going on in the NFT world in so many different ways.
Yeah,
we just
not
can't do it.
We just, for
you know what we need? Right, you know what we need? We need an AI to solve all these problems. If we just hit up ChatGPT and we're like, hey, ChatGPT, here's what's going on in NFTs and crypto. Can you please just fix the laws? And how would you change the law? I bet you it would spit out some interesting fire shit right there.
Yoga's lawyers entered the chat. He's going to be pulling up in court with his computer open in ChatGPT.
No. And shout out all the agents in chat, man. Gen X is saying, like, you know, not necessarily impressed by what the AI stuff out there, man. Like, we've done some stuff in ChatGPT that literally blew my mind the other day.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, you know, maybe not the art. Maybe like I said, I think that it's going to get to a point where even you will be surprised, even in art, like where you'll just be able to type in some keywords and it won't be pulling from Getty Images. It'll just already have that stored neural knowledge base to say, oh, here's what this word associates with. Here's the combination of pixels I should put together in the right colors to give you what you want. But you know that it's, you know, I think it's coming sooner than we think. And it's gonna be cool. Gonna be a wild ride here. But
my daughter had ChatGPT write our vacuum Rupert. It's like one of the Roomba vacuums. She had to write Rupert a love letter and saying thank you so much for doing such a good job cleaning our house. So she was pretty.
That's fire, man. I mean, there's so many applications, and when you talk about training an AI, I mean, that's definitely something we're going to see. Like right now, these AIs are very low level. They're very open and public. They're not specifically trained, and I've seen some examples of specifically trained AIs, in particular for gaming assets and gaming, you know, applications that are mind blowing, man. When you train an AI on things, it can generate amazing stuff, and so. It's definitely coming, and it's gonna change gaming. It's gonna change art. It's gonna change entertainment in general.
It's gonna change everything.
Everything entertainment, everything visual. Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, we see other things like ChatGPT passing the bar, like getting ready to pass it, like all these. I mean, this is legit stuff, man. So if you're not using these tools, you definitely should be out there using them. I know we kind of strayed away from the main topic of Yuga, not only in the part, but the AI stuff is just crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. I'll just add to that is NVIDIA. They're like training robots like to basically move a cube and manipulate a cube, and they can basically scale that up to like a million different simulations at the same time, so it can cloud learn how to move a cube in like 40 minutes instead of 40 years. So yeah, it's getting interesting really quick. And Nvidia is actually one of the sleepers right now, I think, in AI that people should be taking a look at.
It has a cool tool called NVIDIA Canvas that's sort of like an AI-enabled Photoshop type editor. And it, like, if you just look up NVIDIA Canvas on YouTube, and there's some really cool stuff to look at. Um, but speaking of big players, big changes in big tech, and a bunch of changing things. Let's get on to our next and last topic here. Possibly the most important as it pertains to Web3 gaming. Our favorite thing to talk about here. And this is whether or not Amazon is all in on Web3. Some rumors coming out of the rumor mill here talking about Amazon and basically going to be rolling out and making like official announcements potentially here in April about a ton of different Web3 initiatives, including working with different games. Potentially an NFT marketplace might be in the works. At least the CEO is saying they're not opposed to selling NFTs, and kind of hinting towards that direction of possibility being something that they're working on. But I want to get your guys' opinions on what it means for Amazon really like making an official announcement and stepping into the game here, and really how that might change Web3 gaming. Even though is Web3 going to stick? I don't. I feel like we need something new again. But I don't know. Kyle, let me ask you, man. I mean, if Amazon begins developing and promoting different Web3 games, and aiding in like the research and development on those, I mean, how do you think that's going to affect the industry and like the speed at which this catches on?
Yeah, I think that they will probably provide like kind of the resources of Web3 gaming. I think I was reading a few articles. They do that essentially with Avalanche, where you can spin up a node and test and do different kind of things on Avalanche. So I could see them kind of providing the same underlying, like, I guess, support and tech in terms of how these games are made and created and how you can test them. I'm very interested to see what direction they'll actually go in. I could definitely see them integrating NFTs either into their marketplace or having it obviously a completely like a separate experience altogether or a tab for NFTs. It just makes sense with Shopify kind of announcing and even collaborating with Instagram, like with some like, integrating Shopify into Instagram with NFTs. I think it's just this is just going to happen because it's the right move for Amazon at this point. And with the digital collectible space being worth billions of dollars and set to like go to trillions eventually, like this is obviously something they're going to take a big look at. And yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them getting to Web3 gaming and have maybe a studio. We've seen them do, some PC games and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what direction they go in. I think they'll stick with their bread and butter, marketplace maybe first, underlying tech as well, and support there with AWS and Amazon Web Services. We'll see a lot of that at first, and then they'll roll out more announcements as time goes on.
Well, yeah, and speaking of AWS, I know like a recent news from one of our friends, the Bornless. They just transitioned all of their stuff over to AWS also, which I think is a great move for them, and also a great game for those who maybe haven't checked it out. If you haven't seen, we've got a few different videos on the channel, so check that out. It's like a horror FPS type first game, survival game, horror FPS. Actually, I don't even really know the best way to categorize it, but
Yeah,
it's
horror FPS. It's a horror. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like
yeah.
FPS, but like dark and creepy and like crazy, satanic monsters coming
Yeah.
after you, and
Yeah, check
you
it
still got
out.
to find weapons and kill people.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Amazon, I think if like depending on what this initiative is, it's been kind of being talked about a bit. Whatever they're going to start officially announcing in April, I wonder whether or not like news like that is going to start to legitimize, everything that we've been talking about here on the channel. MTC, let me ask you. I mean, like, why do you think Amazon's embracing Web3 gaming and Web3 in general? And I mean, how do you think it's going to benefit them?
Whether you're a college, a country, a state, a company, if you adopt a blockchain, you will win. And if you don't, you'll be left behind. So it's either you get in or you jump out. And I do think Amazon has been ahead of the game since the beginning. I mean, listen, they started off as a bookstore, they saw that worked. Then they started a marketplace. Now they're pretty much almost a monopoly in some ways. It's only inevitable that they get into crypto. And they've been looking into crypto in quite a few different ways. But of course, NFT gaming is something they have to get into, being that the younger generation is going to jump into Web3 gaming. And I keep saying this all the time. Like, once Gen Z comes into crypto, it's going to be totally different. And gaming is going to be the way that happens. So I do think that it's inevitable that they get into crypto. I do picture them having some sort of marketplace to begin with, test the waters, because I don't think that they're going to put something out that they know isn't going to work perfectly, if that makes sense. So I do think they're going to start off small, but of course it's inevitable. They're going to fall behind if they don't.
Yeah, as is the way with Amazon, I feel like, they're gonna announce whatever this is in April. Everyone's gonna totally hate on it, and like, there's gonna be a ton of backlash. Everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Amazon's the worst thing ever," and then what they're actually gonna end up rolling out is gonna be a good product. Where what we lack a lot of times in the space is good, well thought out, well developed products
And
and
you,
services.
oh, sorry.
No, 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 go for it, MTC.
I was gonna say, with Prime and Prime Music, people didn't think that was going to work at the beginning. People didn't use it. They literally had to almost forcibly give it to you and say, "Hey, if you're subscribed to Prime, you get to watch movies, you get to listen to music." I think kind of the same thing is going to happen again, where they'll kind of just shove it in your face and say, "Hey, like, there's this NFT part of our website. Go check it out. Maybe you should go look at this." Because I remember when Prime, music and video came out, they were putting it all over their packages. They were sending you emails. They were alerting you when you got on the site, "Hey, go look at the new TV shows." And they start developing their own TV shows. It's all in evolution. So of course they're going to introduce lightly, but it's going to be something they just throw at you and say, "Hey, look at this."
Yeah, and you talk about other initiatives they've put out that like weren't necessarily super popular at first. You look at or like their uh, TV development, movie development or production. Like The Boys is one of the number one shows in the world right now. I'm pretty sure, and that's an Amazon original. So, I can imagine that what they're working on in this space is probably going to be good, whether or not it's received well at first. But speaking of being received well at first, I mean, Dr. JPEG, let me ask you. I mean, if do you think whatever this might be, since it's coming from Amazon, I mean, in the eyes of Web 2 people, do you think that's going to legitimize what we've started, all the things we've been talking about here for so long?
Yes, absolutely, man. I think that you've got 200 million people, you've got 35 million people in Prime Gaming. You have amazing opportunities to put something in front of them, show them what this is about, and entice them to join us on this side of Web3. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so every Prime subscriber gets Trojan Horse and NFT. They don't even need to set up a wallet. You
Yeah.
already have it in your new Amazon, like on your Prime account, with the new little link on the Amazon homepage or whatever to go check it out.
Yeah, I
But
think they could easily integrate a loyalty program, with their marketplace, like, or just make it a free NFT, like you said. If you have Prime for 12 months, you get a badge NFT, and maybe you get a perk for having that NFT. So they could easily integrate some kind of rewards program too.
Well, and that's sort of the direction Reddit took when they launched their PFPs, and we
Mhm.
see how well those did, really well, for those watching who might not know. But Stash, let me ask you. I mean, when do you think we see AAA game? How do you think Amazon's going to come out here in the space? What do you think they might be working on? And do you think that they're going to be one of the people that maybe comes out with one of these big, like maybe the first AAA blockchain game that actually catches some wind?
So, I think that Amazon has been working on this shit for a lot longer than most people realize. They have already been working in the Web3 space in some kind of infrastructure type of ways. And I think they've been testing the waters kind of in that way that is not super apparent to a lot of people. And I think that when they launch whatever they're going to launch later this year, I think it's going to be incredibly well polished. I think it probably will do some damage when it comes to existing infrastructure we have here in the NFT world. Kind of like the title suggests. Will they come out with a marketplace? Why wouldn't they? I mean, that is the number one thing that Amazon does. Of course, they're going to come out with a marketplace. Will it compete with OpenSea and Magic Eden and the other likes? I can almost guarantee it. And you talk about all these projects, NFT projects, Web3 gaming projects. A huge majority of them use Amazon Web Services for their hosting and things. So I could definitely see them coming out with a counterpart as well that is possibly a semi-decentralized network that may even compete with IPFS as well. I mean, Amazon is lined up to do all these things, and it would make sense because they then would kind of have a little bit of a monopoly, like they kind of already do, but stepping up even one level further, right? Having a monopoly on the future of decentralized tech that people rely on. And I think that smart people at Amazon could definitely see that IPFS is something that is heavily relied on when you want to talk about something being truly, having a decentralized element to it, in particular for hosting and file storage, which could be huge in the future. So I think definitely marketplace is probably what's going to be coming first. Integration of NFTs into the marketplace. We've already seen eBay kind of do something similar, where you can go on there. They have an NFT section. You can buy and sell things there. There are people buying and selling NFTs on eBay, guys. If you did not know this. So yeah, I mean, I could easily see them pushing something like that, and like MTC and everyone else was saying, they have the marketing rails to do this. I mean, just like the thumb shows here, think about every package you get saying, NFTs by Amazon. Go check out their marketplace, amazon.com/NFTs. And it just, everywhere you see it, it's on little, short commercials before your favorite show, like The Boys. And you have to watch this shit, man. It's there. And so you're not going to avoid it, and then they'll integrate with everything they're doing. So you like The Boys, boom, you watch it. Now here's a QR code you can scan that goes to the Amazon NFT marketplace. You redeem a free, NFT that, says maybe you watch that episode, collect all 10 of them, during this certain period of time, and get this cool thing that will ship to you in less than a day because you're a Prime member. I mean, there's so many systems that they can connect together that the NFT technology would make sense with. And an easy way for them to kind of not corner the market, but definitely take a giant lion's share out of what we're seeing already with NFT volume on OpenSea and Magic Eden and a bunch of other large marketplaces for NFTs.
Well, yeah, Jeff Bezos, I don't think is not here to just play games, man. He's here to win. So,
Nope. They're a behemoth. It goes past Jeff at this point, man. Like, Jeff is just one man. He was just the founder. It goes so far beyond that. It's like Google having so many divisions, so many things you're working on, and it's not just a one person show. It is a multitude of people all working together. And once you got that train moving with these wheels, these biscuit wheels moving, like Amazon and Google has going, man. I mean, it's gravy all day long. And that is what we're going to see here with Amazon when they enter into Web3 and NFTs.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they're gonna announce here in April. At least that's what the rumor is April. So keep your ears peeled, your eyes peeled for some news from Amazon this spring. We'll definitely be keeping an eye out, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again here on Around the Metaverse once they actually do drop that news. But that's all we have for tonight, folks. We're running out of time here. First off, I want to thank you guys for joining us, all of our agents in chat who are still sticking around with us. I want to thank you guys for joining us on the show tonight, Dr. JPEG, MTC, Kyle. Very glad to have you all back on the show. And if you're still watching and you haven't smashed that like and hit subscribe, do us a favor and do so. But that's all for tonight, folks. Catch us again next Monday for another episode of Around the Metaverse, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But that's it. We out.